Good evening, Happy New Year, and welcome to the final edition of the FTTC podcast for the 2023 season. We are your home for breaking news and breaking balls in the fantasy sports world. From touchdowns to tailgates, we've got it all covered with a dash of witty banter. I'm your host, Jason Stankiewicz, and today we are joined by our champion of both the regular season and the playoffs, who's ready to fill us in on all of what it took to get to the top. The man who stood against the league, taking a stand throughout the year, Mr. Steve Blazer. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have wrapped up the season, it's time to hear from our champ who cashed in all his karma to take down not only the regular season, but also the playoffs. The man who turned down the Windy City Bowls and is dodging the G League court, Mr. Steve Blazer from Take a Stand. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you for having me. It feels incredible to be here at this moment.
I mean, it turned out to be quite a season for you. You won not only the regular season, you won the playoffs, and really this is our first opportunity to give you your due. We missed out in some earlier podcasts, but I think this one is really a celebration of your season. And any initial thoughts for us?
Yeah, first of all, I must tell the viewers that this is a re-recording. Jason actually said some very controversial things, and we had to start over. But I would like to just repeat that I'm just so thankful for all the hard work that you have put in this season with the podcast, because it's made the season so much fun. And like I said, my parents listen to it and watch it, and it's just been really cool.
How about that?
Yeah. That was a shocker. Second would be I'm really excited to have won the championship. I've never won before. I'm generally around middle of the group. So it feels really cool to have won, especially in this season. A lot of competition, I would say, a lot of drama, both at the top and the bottom. I don't know. I think I set myself up for success with the G League tryout. I really faced a lot of my fears. I faced down a lot of the league's bullies, some notorious bullies. You have your Billy Rohallis, Crooked Kokoris, the list goes on, Trevor Kinsey, of course. And we look back and we just think to ourselves, where are they now? What happened to them having come for me, who is now the king? And it turns out they missed, and you can't do that. And I was on a revenge tour this year. I took a stand against bullying primarily. I don't know if I've revealed that this season, but that was kind of the thing that I was championing this year, was an anti-bullying platform. So we're just really excited to have kind of brought attention to that, and really excited to have stuck it to the league the way I did.
Well, I mean, you definitely shut down the bullies, and you know what they say, take a shot at the king, you best not miss. It seems like the rest of the league missed, but it's been a few weeks since we've had a podcast. Let's do a quick recap here of the events that have occurred since our last one, just for our listeners out there. So you ended up winning the regular season. You finished 11-3 on a 6-game win streak, 2 games ahead of second place, who was the Disasters. In the first round of the playoffs, you got to cruise on a nice bye, and you watched as Dallas collapsed, leading to Stinky Pete's downfall. And Strickland Propane got his first win in seemingly years against Jordy's Ghost. Coming off of that one, then you came to the semifinal, and you put up a stellar 134 points. You knocked me out. On the other side of the bracket, we saw maybe one of the worst semifinal matchups we've ever seen.
Yeah, we did.
The Disasters knocked down Strickland Propane. I think it was like 82-64, just absolutely embarrassing. And I was sitting there watching like, man, I wish I could have been on that side. But anyway, you moved on to the final, and you rolled right through. Really, it never even felt like that much of a contest. You won 108-90. CMC got knocked out early. Didn't really matter for you. I mean, did you kind of just feel in cruise control, the last 4 or 5 weeks? Did you feel like it was ever really in doubt?
I really didn't until the championship, honestly, and I think that's just because of nerves. Like, I think if I was honest with myself, like, I shouldn't have been nervous at all, because I like, barring some major collapse, I should have won. But before that, I felt really good. And actually going into the championship game, like I think I had the best matchups. I got in the habit of kind of like looking for matchups in my rotating players, like defenses, receivers, quarterbacks, like 2 to 3 weeks out, especially for players that have buys. So like going into the playoffs, I was kind of like monitoring that. So I felt really comfortable about my matchups versus Zay's. Um, and then of course, like going into it and seeing that Keenan Allen was out, um, and he had a couple players that were kind of questionable. That made me feel good, but I was definitely very nervous. And I would just like to point out, in that first round of the playoffs, I did set a lineup, and I did score 153 plus points. So just wanted to say that as well. And as well, to go back to something you had said about my losses, I would also like to say that in this season, Take a Stand had the smallest margin of loss, with, I believe, 7.09 points. So,
I mean, throughout the year, it felt like Take a Stand on a weekly basis was putting up a pretty consistent 120. I didn't really get the
yeah.
feeling that there was that many weeks that you were throwing up like 150, 160. So maybe the total points for wasn't like a blowout number, but it had to be one of the most consistent teams I've ever seen. Anybody that was matching up against you knew that they had to put up a solid 130 or so to beat you.
So I would say this, Jason. Just in terms of points for, um, I'm sorry if you lose me here. I've just got to bring up a couple stats. It truly was a record-breaking season for me. The all-time leader in points scored is now myself with 2,071 points. That's an average of almost 122 points. Um, on top of that, just offensive points, we're looking at the all-time leader with 1,802 almost points by Take a Stand. Um, so I just want to kind of point out there that it wasn't just 120 point performances. It was consistently being the highest scorer week in and week out, where I think even going into weeks, people were scared to play me. I was picking the right people every single week. I had very few times where I left points on the bench. Um, I don't know. You know, I did some good things.
So I think you had. I mean, it was truly a phenomenal season, and really your team was buoyed by running backs, right? Throughout the whole year, you finished with three of the top four running backs, which is absolutely insane. One of those, I have to guess, might be your player of the year. I mean, I know Christian McCaffrey put up a crazy season. You could probably say he's your player of the year, but I gotta think you might go with Kyron Williams. I mean, that man had been absolutely incredible like the last 6 or 7 weeks.
Hmm. No, he's a horse. He won the championship for me. I mean, being able to rotate in running backs when I had running backs out, like I really didn't face a ton of injuries. I had people go out occasionally where I had to slot like one or two people in, but with running backs, like I did have them go out a lot. Jonathan Taylor was out for 4 games, then he got hurt. Raheem was in and out. Kyron's been hurt, so I would agree that Kyron is probably my player of the year. Um, but really, Raheem Mostert shutting down the haters that said it was going to be a running back by committee, and consistently scoring a fuck ton of points was insane.
I mean, yeah, I think. Listen, you nailed the draft because over the course of the year, as you mentioned, you had very few injuries. Um, you did say you had a few injuries to your running backs, but your depth was just so unbelievable that it really didn't matter. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, did you feel like you were getting lucky with that, or did you feel like it was kind of uh, you know natural attrition over the course of several years coming to maybe a regression or evening out toward the mean?
So I would say this, right? Like you said, I have three of the top four running backs. Jonathan Taylor, if he played the whole year, would probably be closer up there. Um, so I would say that I set myself up where injuries wouldn't really matter, right? So like if a running back did go down, I still had four more to slot in who were scoring similar amount of points. Like I was choosing between like 25 or 30 points a week. So like I think I was good there. I think in quarterbacks I was rotating three quarterbacks every week anyways, and I was just picking them up. So I don't think there could have been a situation unless I had like three running backs all go down at the same time where I couldn't have handled some kind of injury, right? So like my three quarterbacks, I'm sure you know this. I was the 2023 league passing yard leader, um, and that's rotating. You know, Brock Purdy, Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield. I think I even had Daniel Jones start one single week, who I drafted actually. Um, Receivers, I think Chris Olave helped me a lot. I think the Saints being terrible helped me a lot. Um, I don't know. Niners defense I picked pretty early, I think, in the draft, and it's just stuck with them all year.
Well, on the topic of quarterbacks, I owe you an apology because over the course of the season, I was coming after you, saying that you needed to get an actual quarterback in there, and that streaming it was going to be a flaw for you. But Brock Purdy finished as QB6, so you obviously were able to rotate him well with some of the other guys you mentioned, Sam Hall, Baker Mayfield, and honestly, quarterback was definitely not an issue for you. It might have been even a high point at certain points. So, definitely well done there. But I will say, on the subject of running back depth, just to get back to that for a second, I think one of the more impressive things that happened in my mind is that you actually held pretty firm on not trading anyone. You said you weren't going to. You didn't move anyone. I'm sure you got some decent offers. Uh, you had potentially the most leverage in the league with all the depth that you had. Did you ever come close to making a move there? Or were you just kind of like, yeah, I'm actually holding out and I like where I'm at?
Um, I never even thought about it. Um, you mentioned the great offers that I should have gotten, and I agree. I probably should have gotten some great offers. Those just didn't come through, and I was fine to just stay where I was. I was on a winning streak, and I was also really nervous that someone would get hurt because people were having injuries all around the league. So I wanted to stash five of the best players in the league on my team for a rainy day. And even if I was going to leave, 40 points on my bench each week, that's 40 points that someone else wasn't going to score.
Yeah,
And
I think
I
that's a
felt
good
good at
point.
every other position.
That's a good point, and honestly, I think you did a great job not blowing up your team, and it definitely worked out for you. We did see one other owner specifically absolutely nuke his team, much to my benefit. Thank you, Nate. But yeah, I mean, I think throughout the year you really played things well from a managerial perspective, kind of across the board. And I think Durante was the executive of the year, but to me that feels a little bit misleading, based
I
on where
agree.
the standings fell out. Now, obviously, one of the more difficult things to do in fantasy is to repeat from one year to the next. You think that might be in the cards next year? You think that's something you could potentially do?
Man, I hope so. I'll tell you what, if the league lets Audric Estime slip onto my team, I will win the league again, and I'm pretty confident of that. Um, I think Sam probably already has his radar out for him, but that's just a little, inside the brain there. No, I think it'll be cool. I think every year I go in just trying not to get last. I'm sure like Coco will cook up some crazy punishment because he wants to go viral on Barstool Sports every year. Um, But yeah, I just played not to get last, and then once I have that kind of locked up, hopefully by around like week 4 to 7, then I can start kind of enjoying and hoping for more. But I'm just looking to have another good draft, and if I have to play next season different, I will. I haven't had much success doing that, but we'll see. I think I have about 4 trades total in our league history, but you know, as we saw this year, it only takes one. And I do want to say about this year and um, something you said before about Nate's trade and kind of how you benefited from it. I think that what can't be overlooked is we've always said that Sam's trade in what 2018-19, the Jamal Charles, the infamous. I think we've always said that that's the worst, and it's kind of put on a pedestal. I Nate's trade was so much worse because Sam's trade just like on its surface, like, oh my God, that's so bad. What you did with Nate's players was incredible.
Yep.
Like, I think all season, I truly couldn't imagine like being in his situation and having to watch your team put up the numbers that you did with his players.
Yep.
Crazy. I just wanted to say that.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think like Nate's team is what carried my team because my team was generally a average to slightly above average before that deal, and then after that deal, it was. I mean, I finished third, winning the third place game, right? But I think I probably had. I would say maybe the second best team at the end of the season, at the end of the
Yeah, I would
playoffs,
say so for sure.
because the D's Acers, while they finished second, had kind of a rough run at the end there, but I don't know. We don't have to get into it too much because I do, obviously would have loved to be on the other side of the bracket. But you did mention last place games though, and then last place punishments. We got to talk about that for a couple minutes because we actually
Sure.
hadn't heard who finished last. We got Auto Draft Bot Squad finishing down there for the second time in a three-way tie with Mike's Lucky Charm and Nice Catch Blanco Nino, losing out on points. But any thoughts on Mr. Cookie Boy being down at the bottom again?
I mean, it's not surprising, is it? That's what more can you say? Cookie at the bottom.
He was the
Year
least
in and
active
year out,
manager.
he's either at the top or at the bottom. There's no middle ground, and more likely than not, he's going to be at the bottom. And I thought this year, Karma would kind of win out and Kokoris would lose, but I think truthfully he's going to end up losing anyways because he's going to really have to help plan this golf trip. So, it's a nice kind of joint punishment as much as he says it's not. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, listen. I think it would have been great to see the commissioner down there at the bottom. All the respect in the world for him. I think he's a good fantasy player, but he talks a big game, and it would have been nice to see him taking down a peg or two. But at the end of the day, we do have Schillinger down there. You mentioned the golf trip. I think we're all super excited for it. Any preferred destinations you want to go for that?
No, I'm awful at golf. I don't really do it, so I just want to go somewhere that's nice. I don't really care about the golf. I just care about the accompanying activities and locations.
That's fine. I'm sure it'll be some great camaraderie. We'll probably get some all kinds of different games going, and if we're doing it around draft time too, it could always be fun to do a live draft. I don't think I've ever done one. You ever done one of those?
No, I have not. And another thing, I could teach everyone how to shotgun, potentially, how to not spill half the beers. That would be a nice little event.
I would love a shotgun clinic because I do agree that I think three-quarters of our league has no idea how to open a beer properly for a shotgun. As a topic of shotguns, real quick, who do you think had the best shotgun this year? I feel like you're most qualified to judge that. Obviously, you didn't have to do one, so you weren't in contention for it. But I think there were a couple decent ones.
I mean, we had a lot. I think Sam's, was it the most recent from the Lost Bet where he was standing in the Cayman
Yep.
Islands?
Yep.
That was kind of nice. I would say the one where I think it was this year where Kokor spilled like three-quarters of his beer.
Early on. Yep.
Yep. And then didn't take a new one. I think that one really stood out to me because it kind of just illustrates a lot of things that I keep preaching. But yeah, Sam's was really cool. I don't know, it was good. I'm a sucker for a good view.
I mean, it had great background, and during the holidays too, when it's cold, it was it definitely inspired some jealousy. I would say that for sure. Anyway, we're winding down the 2023 season. Any final thoughts for the people? Anything that you want to put out there? This final commentary on your terrific season.
I mean, good season, everyone. You tried your hardest. I saw you put in a lot of effort, and I appreciate that. There can't be a winner without 11 losers. I'm excited to get the trophy. I'm excited to get the money. Um, I'm excited for my 1 day contract with the Bulls. And I will end the season as our league's leading point scorer of all time, leading rushing yards of all time. And I'm really happy with that. So it was a great season. Good job, everyone.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on a great year, both regular season and playoffs. We look forward to maybe speaking to you next year. Who knows? We may fire up the FTTC podcast for a few episodes next year. But thanks for joining us 3 times this year, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
That's tantalizing. Thank you, Jason, for having me again.
Have a great night. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we sign off for the 2023 season. It's been a great year being on the mic with all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in and following this journey with the FTTC. And thank you to all of our sponsors for allowing this podcast to become the #1 podcast in the Southwest suburban Illinois fantasy football males aged 29 to 31 who had a study hall with Mr. Finder listening bracket. It is truly an accomplishment and achievement that we are so proud of, and we could not have done it without all of you. Congratulations again to Take a Stand, and best of luck to all the players in the 2024 edition of the FTTC. We look forward to catching you again next year.